Islands. What do you think of when you think of an island? Warm, sandy beaches and lush palm trees? Clear waters filled with colorful fish? Not all islands are like the tropical ones you might imagine. Greenland is the largest island in the world, but it doesn't have a warm tropical climate at all.
Island or continent. An island is a body of land that is completely surrounded by water. If you look at a world map, you can see that the continents are surrounded by water too. So how do you tell a continent from an island? By its size.
Water surrounds both Australia and Greenland. However, Australia is more than 3 times larger than Greenland. Australia is considered a continent, while Greenland is considered an island. How islands are formed. At first glance, islands seem to be floating in the water, but that isn't the case. Although islands are formed in many different ways, they're all attached to the ocean floor.
Some islands are formed when plates in the Earth's crust move away from each other. A small piece of land that drifts away from a continent becomes an island. Many scientists believe that in millions of years, part of California may drift off and become an island.
Some islands are formed when the sea level rises. The rising water floods lowland areas, leaving some of the higher land as islands.
In the shallow waters along a continent's coastline, ocean currents and winds stir up sand, gravel, and other sediments. When the sediment settles, it sometimes builds up in long, narrow strips that stick up above the water's surface. These are known as barrier islands. They also form where rivers empty into the ocean.
Some islands form when volcanoes erupt on the ocean floor. The lava that spews out of the volcano cools and hardens, forming a mass of rock that may rise above sea level. The rock that sticks out of the ocean is an island, like the Palau Island shown here.
Some islands are made of tiny creatures called coral. The skeletons of these creatures often form a stony mass, or reef, that surrounds a volcanic island. When the water rises, the islands may disappear below the sea. If the reef continues to grow, it will poke above the water, forming a ring-shaped coral island called an atoll.
Island plants and animals. When a volcanic island first forms, it's just a mass of rock. There is nothing at all living on it. Today, however, volcanic islands like the Hawaiian Islands are filled with life. How do you suppose plants and animals arrive on an island in the middle of the ocean?
The sea brings life to an island by carrying seeds like this coconut. Logs and other debris may also float to an island, carrying insects, worms, and other animals.
Birds and other flying creatures arrive by air. Birds sometimes carry seeds with them. Seeds may also be carried to an island by the wind. People usually reach an island by boat and often bring animals and plants with them. Evolution. Island animals and plants are separated from those that live on the mainland. Because of this, the evolution or development of these plants and animals often takes a different turn.
Giant tortoises weighing 500 pounds, 230 kilograms, are found on the Galapagos Islands off Ecuador. These large creatures are found nowhere else in the world. There is a different kind of giant tortoise on each island in the Galapagos. Charles Darwin was a British scientist who studied life on the Galapagos Islands. He suggested that all the Galapagos tortoises were related, but that each type of tortoise had changed slightly over many years because it was isolated on its own island.
Flying fish. Animals that fly have broad, flat wings and powerful muscles to flap them with. They flap their wings to move up in the air and change direction. Flying fish do not have this ability, but they do have bodies that let them sail through the air or glide. A flying fish's tail is V-shaped. The bottom part of the tail is longer than the top part. The fish uses its tail to push itself along the water surface until it gains enough speed to glide. Flying fish have pectoral fins that are high on their bodies and very long. When a flying fish spreads its pectoral fins, the fish can glide over several hundred yards. Flying fish have firm, cigar-shaped bodies. They range from 6 to 18 inches, 15 to 45 centimeters in length. Why fly? Flying fish live in tropical oceans, where their biggest enemy is a fish called the dolphin fish. Scientists think that flying fish probably developed the ability to glide through the air because they were chased so much by dolphin fish. Some dolphin fish throw their bodies out of the water as they try to catch flying fish. Do you think that dolphin fish may fly one day too? This dolphin fish is trying to catch the flying fish as it re-enters the water. Luckily for the flying fish, it can glide faster than the dolphin fish can swim. Unfortunately, flying fish have enemies out of the water too. When a flying fish is gliding over the water, it is very vulnerable to birds like this tern. Some dolphin fish throw their bodies out of the water as they try to catch flying fish. Do you think that dolphin fish may fly one day too? This dolphin fish is trying to catch the flying fish as it re-enters the water. Luckily for the flying fish, it can glide faster than the dolphin fish can swim. Flying fish have ways to protect their young from enemies too. They hide their eggs in seaweed. The eggs look like little air sacs that keep the seaweed afloat.
Like the birds. Two other types of fish have the ability to fly. The hatchet fish from South America and the butterfly fish from Africa. These freshwater fish can leap several feet out of the water by rapidly flapping their pectoral fins, much like birds flap their wings.
Islands. Seabirds. All kinds of birds live near the sea. They glide along the waves and feed along the shore or dive for fish. Most have waterproof feathers, webbed feet for swimming, and sharp bills for gripping slippery fish. Kinds of seabirds. There are many kinds of seabirds. They include razorbills and guillemots, whose small wings act like flippers for swimming. Other seabirds, such as albatrosses and petrels, have long, slim wings for soaring high in the sky. Like seagulls, skuas are scavengers that eat almost any food, from dead animals to other seabirds' eggs and chicks. The great skua attacks birds in mid-flight, making them drop their food, which the skua then catches.
There are 14 kinds of albatrosses. Most live south of the equator. Their wings are the longest of any bird, more than 10 feet, 3 meters from tip to tip. Albatrosses glide over the oceans for hours without flapping their wings. They feed by picking fish from the water. Albatrosses and petrels are called tube noses because they have tube-shaped nostrils on their bills.
Herring gulls are often seen trailing after fishing boats searching for leftovers. They are very noisy and are not afraid to go after any piece of food they want. They pick through the garbage dumps and beaches of Europe, North America, North Africa, and Asia. They also visit farmland where they can feed on worms, insects, and small mammals. The Atlantic puffin can hold a dozen sand eels or small fish in its big right bill. When the puffin's bill is full, it carries the food to the chick in its burrow. Puffins live only in the Arctic.
Breeding colonies. Many kinds of seabirds raise their young on cliffs and small islands. Their food is nearby, and the chicks are safe from predators. The noise of a colony of birds is deafening.
Murres belong to the auk family. During breeding season, they live in huge colonies on cliff ledges. A female murre lays 1 egg each year. Guillemots do not make nests. Their eggs are pointed at one end and spin in a circle if they roll. That way they do not fall off the edge of the cliff where the guillemot lays them.
Forever flying. Some kinds of seabirds come to land only once a year to breed and raise their young. They spend the rest of their lives at sea.
Seabirds, like shearwaters, albatrosses, and petrels, have long, broad wings for soaring. Shearwaters use gusts of wind to keep them in the air for months at a time. They don't have to flap their wings. The wind carries them upward. When the wind dies out, they glide down to catch another gust. The birds can even sleep a few minutes at a time as they coast downward.
Air. When you run, you can feel air rushing through your hair. You can see wind rustling leaves or lifting a kite high above the treetops. Air is all around you, yet when you're still, you might not notice it at all. Air is 78% nitrogen. Nitrogen is a very stable gas. It does not easily react or combine with other substances.
Air is 21% oxygen. Both people and animals need oxygen to survive.
About 1% of air is small amounts of many gases. Argon makes up most of this 1%, but tiny amounts of carbon dioxide, methane, helium, hydrogen, krypton, neon, ozone, and xenon are also a part of air.
Gases make up dry air. Air also contains water droplets, ice crystals, and tiny solid particles like dust, ash from volcanoes and factories, plant pollen, and bacteria. Scientists do not consider these things really part of air.
Air pressure. The Earth is surrounded by a thick layer of air called the atmosphere. Air is light, but this layer of air is so thick that it presses down on everything. This is called air pressure. On Earth, you don't notice the weight of air pressing down on you. That's because air presses equally from all sides, and the liquids inside your body press outward with the same force. If you went into space where there is no air, you would have to wear a spacesuit that was pressurized like the Earth's surface. If you didn't, there would be no atmosphere pressing against your body and keeping the liquids in, and your body would explode.
This is a barometer, an instrument that measures air pressure. It is made of a glass tube turned upside down in an open dish. The tube and the dish contain mercury, a metal that is liquid at room temperature. When air pushes down on the mercury in the dish, it forces the mercury up the tube. The greater the air pressure, the higher the mercury goes up the tube.
The air pressure at sea level causes the barometer's mercury to rise about 760 millimeters. It does not rise as high at higher altitudes, where the air pressure is lower than at sea level. In an airplane 52,000 feet, 16,000 meters high, air pressure is only 1/10 of the pressure on the ground. Compressed air. Air can be pumped into a closed space at a pressure many times the pressure at sea level. This is called air compression. People use compressed air to do many things. Tools such as jackhammers, for example, are powered by high-pressure air from mechanical pumps.
Compressed air fills up bicycle and car tires. The air keeps the tires solid but flexible and cushions passengers from bumps in the road.
Have you ever seen a vehicle that can float above the ground? That's exactly what a hovercraft does. Hovercrafts can travel over swamps, deep snow, or water without sinking in. They are kept off the ground by a layer of compressed air. A large fan sucks air downward into a flexible rubber skirt to create this layer. Large propellers on top move the craft forward and are also used for steering.
Suction. Imagine that you are drinking a milkshake with a plastic straw. Do you know how the milkshake is getting into your mouth? You may be surprised to find out that you're not sucking it up. The milkshake rises in the straw because of a change in air pressure. When you suck on a straw, you use your lungs as a pump to remove the air and the air pressure above the liquid in the straw. The higher pressure of the air outside the straw pushes the liquid up the straw and into your mouth. Air resistance. When a car moves along a road, it pushes the air out of the way. Pushing against the air produces a force called air resistance, or drag, which slows down the car.
By gathering air in its canopy, a parachute increases air resistance so that the person holding it falls slowly and safely to the ground. Skydivers also use air resistance to control their speed before opening their parachutes. They spread their arms and legs to slow the fall.
Modern cars are designed with sleek, streamlined shapes to reduce drag. Car makers test new car models in wind tunnels where air blows at high speed. In this picture, a computer shows how wind flows over a car's surface. Islands. Weathering and erosion. The Earth is always changing. Over millions of years, whole mountains may crumble and wash away into the sea. Rocks break down into tiny pieces and are carried away by the natural processes of weathering and erosion.
Weathering and erosion carve out deep valleys and create high mountains. As erosion continues, it wears away the mountain peaks so they become lower and more rounded.
You can see the results of erosion everywhere. These natural monuments in the western United States are spectacular examples. They were made when the rocks and soil around them were worn away, leaving towers of rock.
Weathering. Weathering is the breaking of rocks into tiny pieces. Ice, water, heat, animals, and even plants can weather rocks. Often, rocks are weathered when water seeps into cracks in rocks and then freezes. The water expands while the ice forms, and then the rocks split apart. Plants can split rocks as they grow.
Heat from sunlight can make rocks expand and crack.
Chemicals in rocks may dissolve when water touches them. Animals can break rocks by walking over them. Erosion. Erosion happens when water, ice, or wind carries away soil or weathered rock. Soft rock is broken down and carried away faster than hard rock. Glaciers, large flowing masses of ice, erode rock over thousands of years. As the ice in a glacier flows downhill, it breaks off large chunks of rock and carries them along. It may make a valley or flatten a mountain as it moves. When a glacier melts, it leaves behind all the rock it was carrying. This rock forms new drifts and hills.
Wind can carve interesting shapes in the rock. It sometimes leaves natural bridges and arches like this one in Utah.
Water sweeps away small bits of rock and carries them downstream. These bits grind against other rocks and cause more rocks to wear away. Over time, a stream might carve away the rock, forming a canyon. The Grand Canyon in Arizona was formed this way. It is thousands of feet deep. Mass movements. When erosion occurs suddenly, it can be very dangerous. Avalanches, landslides, and mudslides are examples of mass movements, the sudden movement of a large amount of rock, soil, or water down a hillside. Damage from erosion. The roots of plants help control erosion by soaking up water and holding soil together. When land is cleared of the plants, wind and water carry soil away. This erosion can turn fertile land into dry, dusty fields where nothing can grow. When farmland erodes, fertilizers and other chemicals can wash into rivers, oceans, and drinking water. Soil and sediment from the farmland may clog up irrigation ditches and reservoirs. To prevent erosion, farmers grow grasses and other plants on their fields when they aren't using them to grow crops. Erosion can wash land away under houses. Planting grass and trees helps slow down this process. People sometimes hang large nets across cliffs and steep hillsides to keep rocks and soil from washing away.
Benefits of erosion. Weathering and erosion can change the earth in good ways as well as harmful ways. These processes wear down mountains into soil we use to grow food. They also make beautiful natural scenery, such as canyons, waterfalls, and sandy beaches. It's hard to believe that the soft sand on beaches like this one may have been part of a mountain. Ocean waves and tides are very powerful. Over time, they erode the hardest rock into grains of sand.
Niagara Falls in North America was formed by the Niagara River falling over a shelf of hard rock. Over the centuries, the hard rock has slowly eroded and the falls have moved up the river.
It's hard to believe that the soft sand on beaches like this one may have been part of a mountain. Ocean waves and tides are very powerful. Over time, they erode the hardest rock into grains of sand.
Weathering and
Seashore plants. It takes a special kind of plant to live on a seashore. The plant must survive pounding waves, salty water, drying winds, and hot sunshine. Water and seabirds must be there to spread its seeds. Also, it must grow in some of the worst soils, rock, mud, and sand.
Because ocean tides rise and fall twice every day, the surroundings of seashore plants are always changing. At high tide, a plant might be completely underwater, but at low tide it is left high and dry. A seashore plant must be very tough in order to survive. Rocky. Seaweed and other algae grow well on rocky seashores. Only a few tough plants, however, can live in the small amount of soil there.
Creatures called lichens live toward the top of a rocky shore, where sea spray hits the rock, but waves don't. Lichens are algae and fungi that live together. They look flat and scaly when they are dry, but they get thicker when they absorb water.
Surf grass lives on rocks that are at least partially covered in sand. Its flowers bloom underwater, where pollen can float from one to another. All kinds of seaweed, both large and small, live on rocky shores. They can survive there because of two things: holdfast and slime. Holdfast stick tightly to the rocks so the seaweed doesn't wash away. Slime helps protect the seaweed when it is thrashed against the rocks by waves. It also keeps the seaweed from drying out during low tide.
Muddy. Muddy seashores are found in sheltered areas, such as bays, where waves don't pound the beach. Often, rivers empty into these bays, adding fresh water to the salt water. Many plants that can't survive on rocky or sandy beaches take hold in these more gentle surroundings.
In tropical muddy seashores, mangrove trees are easy to spot. They have prop roots that raise the trees out of the water and help them breathe. As mangroves grow, bits of leaves and roots get trapped underneath them. This material turns to a thick, dark, smelly kind of mud that plants like buttonwood and sawgrass thrive in. Large groups of mangroves make so much mud that they actually create more seashore. An estuary is a place where fresh water and salt water mix. Eelgrass and salt marsh plants grow very well in estuaries. Cordgrass is a salt marsh plant that can grow into huge meadows. It survives by filtering salt from seawater, then secreting the salt through glands in its leaves and stems. Cordgrass can be cut and used as food for cattle.
Sandy. Sandy seashores have very little plant life because plants can't anchor themselves in the shifting sand. Grasses, trees, and flowers start to grow where the sand meets soil. The grasses on a tropical sandy beach may blend into a grove of coconut or other trees. Unlike plants in other kinds of forests, these trees can grow in the presence of saltwater spray.
Beach grass is often the first plant to grow on beaches with sand dunes. A young beach grass plant sends special stems called rootstock, both downward and sideways, holding the plant steady in the shifting sand. New shoots grow from the rootstock. In this way, a clump of beach grass forms a strong, stable mat of stems under the ground. As sand piles up on top of the stems, the sand dunes grow too.
Weathering and
Shorebirds. Shorebirds belong to one of the largest groups of birds in the world. They live along the seashore, eating small animals and worms.
The curlew sticks its beak deep into the sand to pull up worms.
With its short beak, the plover picks up tiny animals off the top of the sand. The avocet uses its curved beak to turn over the sand and expose clams and other food.
kinds of shorebirds. There are two main groups of shorebirds, plovers and sandpipers. Sandpipers often have long legs. Their beaks are pointy and can be very long. Plovers have short legs, short beaks, and compact bodies. They live almost anywhere they can find a shore and open grassy areas.
The bodies of shorebirds seem perfectly formed for the way they live. Their dark-colored, often speckled backs blend in with the shore and shore plants when seen from above. Their long, narrow wings give them great speed and control. Their many types of beaks let them all live together because each type is shaped for hunting a different kind of food.
Migration. Most people notice shorebirds in the spring when the birds gather in huge groups called flocks. The birds fly together all the way up the coast to the Arctic, where they lay their eggs. These migrating flocks can be spectacular. They often contain hundreds of thousands of birds.
Flocks of shorebirds migrating to Alaska often stop at mudflats such as this one in western Washington state. Here, the birds can eat and rest before continuing their journey.
Big trouble. What's all the commotion? A hint of danger can send thousands of shorebirds into the air. Out on the mudflats, the birds' main enemies are falcons and other birds of prey. Shorebirds stick together for safety, and they must do some of their best flying to escape these ferocious hunters. Breeding. Once the shorebirds reach the Arctic, they quickly start making nests and laying eggs. Because they breed on the open tundra and seashore, shorebirds have special ways to protect their eggs and chicks.
When predators like the Jaeger come around, a shorebird parent often protects its nest by acting as if it has a broken wing. The predator will go after the injured bird rather than the nest.
The eggs of shorebirds are colored to blend in with the ground. Birds that eat eggs cannot see the color eggs very well as they fly overhead.
Shorebird chicks are well developed when they are born. They leave the nest within hours of hatching. They can't fly, but they can feed themselves and hide when they are scared.
Relatives. Although the term shorebirds usually means sandpipers and plovers, there are many other birds that live on or near the shore. Many of these birds are relatives of sandpipers and plovers.
Puffins stay in the north. They use their small, fast wings to propel themselves through the air and water. Gulls are scavengers that live just about everywhere. Oyster catchers are experts at eating oysters, of course. An oyster catcher sticks its flattened beak into an oyster and quickly snips off the muscles the oyster uses to close its shell.
Shells. All the shells you see on the seashore were once the homes of soft-bodied sea creatures. Some are single-coiled shells. Others have two sides that open and close.
The queen conch has a big, heavy shell. If you blow into one end of a conch shell, you can make a noise like a trumpet.
There are many kinds of snails that live in fresh and salt water.
The hermit crab makes its home in the empty shell of a snail or other animal. The shell protects the hermit crab from predators such as gulls.
This ridged, fan-like shell once belonged to a scallop.
The winkle has a small, delicate shell.
How shells grow. An animal's shell grows throughout its life. When the animal feeds, it takes in a mineral called calcium carbonate from the water. It uses this mineral to build layers of shell little by little. As the animal grows bigger, its shell grows bigger too.
A larva has a smooth shell.
Animals that live in shells begin life as eggs. The shells of some animals start to form before the animal hatches.
Young shells are tiny and have few coils. Young shells are tiny and have few coils. Young shells are tiny and have few coils. Young shells are tiny and have few coils.
Creatures with single-coiled shells grow by adding layers of calcium carbonate to the open end. Hinge shell creatures, such as cockles, add calcium carbonate to the rounded edges, forming bands called growth rings.
Inside a shell. Can you guess what this nautilus shell looks like inside? Thin layers of calcium carbonate line the walls and give them a pearly sheen. This mother of pearl, as it is called, is also found in abalone, mussel, and some oyster shells. Click on the photo to have a look.
The nautilus has a shell with many chambers, but it lives only in the outer chamber. As the animal gets bigger, it closes off a chamber it has outgrown by building a wall across the opening. Empty compartments contain water and nitrogen gas. The gas helps the nautilus stay afloat as it swims. Barnacles. What are those hard, sharp shells stuck to rocks and driftwood on the ocean shore? They're called barnacles. They may seem like a kind of mussel or oyster, but actually these animals are more closely related to crabs than to shellfish.
Goose barnacles use their stalks to attach themselves to surfaces.
Acorn barnacles live in volcano-shaped shells.
The life of a barnacle. A barnacle isn't born with its dome-like shell. Like many other animals, barnacles grow in stages. Click on each picture to learn about a stage in the life of a barnacle.
Like other crustaceans, barnacles begin life as eggs.
Out of the eggs hatch larvae that swim freely in the water. These larvae molt, or shed their hard outer skeletons as they grow larger.
After several molts, a larva settles on a hard surface, like a rock, the bottom of a boat, or the top of a crab, and attaches itself head first.
Adult barnacles are stuck in one place for the rest of their lives, protected by their hard shells. Removing these unwanted passengers from boats and other structures can be a hard and expensive job.
Eat with your feet. Barnacles may not look like crabs, but they have the same kind of jointed legs that crabs do. A barnacle's legs, however, are covered in fringe. They aren't used for walking, but for eating. At low tide, this acorn barnacle is closed up tight, with its legs curled up inside its shell. When the tide comes in and covers it with water, however, it may open up to feed. Its legs unroll through an opening in the shell and sweep through the water, catching tiny plants and animals in the bristles. The food is passed into the shell to the barnacle's mouth. Seaweed. Any plant-like thing that can be seen growing in ocean water is usually called seaweed. Seaweed grows on rocks, docks, and any other solid object that the ocean touches.
Seaweed may look like a plant, but it's not one. All kinds of seaweed belong to a plant-like group called algae.
Seaweed anatomy. Seaweed does not have roots, stems, leaves, or flowers. Instead, it is specialized for living underwater.
Fronds look like leaves. They grow out from the holdfast. Fronds are very flexible and can be washed around by the water without breaking off.
Some fronds have gas-filled bubbles that help keep them afloat. These bubbles can be as large as cantaloupes.
Many seaweeds have a holdfast, which keeps them from being washed away. A holdfast attaches to a rock or other object. It doesn't take in water or minerals like a true root. Many seaweeds.
Common colors. There are more than 7,000 kinds of seaweed. The most common colors of seaweed are brown, red, and green.
Most brown seaweeds like cold water, though some grow in warm water. Brown seaweeds can grow very large. Giant kelp is a type of brown seaweed. It can reach 200 feet, 61 meters in length. Huge beds of giant kelp grow off the California coast. Many animals feed on and hide in the kelp there. Red seaweeds prefer warm water. They're small and delicate. Their fronds often look like downy feathers.
Green seaweeds are very flexible. They grow in both warm and cold water. Most green seaweeds are small.
Good as gold. Seaweeds are very valuable to people and other animals. They provide food, oxygen, and protection. So if a piece of slimy seaweed wraps around your leg when you're swimming, think that you might be wearing it, washing with it, or even eating it someday.
Seaweeds are rich in vitamins and minerals. They are an important part of the diet of both people and animals. The next time you open a carton of ice cream, check the list of ingredients for the word agar or carrageenan. You guessed it, seaweed.
Seaweeds give many products, including ice cream, their smooth texture. Seaweeds are also added to things like makeup, soap, paint, and some medicines to keep them from drying out.
Living things. How do you tell if something is alive? You can't hear a heartbeat of a tree or a worm, yet they are alive. You can't even see some living things, but they are alive. There are 3 things that only living things can do: grow, reproduce, and react to the environment.
A dog is a living thing. A ball is not. A dog can grow, reproduce, and react to things. A ball can only do what you make it do. A dog is a living thing. A ball is not. A dog can grow, reproduce, and react to things. A ball can only do what you make it do.
Everything grows in time and in stages. Look closely and you'll see. Every organism, every cell is constantly changing from birth to maturity. Every year with the turn of the season, green lace turn to gold. The salmon returns from the sea to fresh water. The tree adds a growth ring, and so the cycle unfolds. Now the
Growth. Living things use energy to grow. They either eat other living things or make their own food. Some living things grow throughout their lives. Others grow for only a little while, and then use energy to keep their bodies working. A human starts out as a tiny egg inside its mother's body. With help from adults, an infant grows into a child. With help,
A child grows into a young person by taking in plenty of energy from the food it eats.
humans stop growing when they are about 25 years old. For the rest of their lives, they eat only to keep their bodies working. A ball does not grow by itself. About the only way a ball could grow is if you pump air into it. Reproduction. A living thing can make more living things, and this is called reproduction. Many plants and animals have male and female parts that come together to produce young. Other living things divide in half or produce young all alone.
Every living thing has genes, tiny parts in each cell that contain instructions for its growth and reproduction. Genes are copied into every new cell when cells divide, and parents pass on their genes to each offspring. Whether a living thing is a one-celled bacterium or a trillion-celled rabbit, it must make young that can also pass on genes. Passing on genes is how a living thing is successful.
Balls don't have genes, and they can't make other balls. Only people and toy factories make other balls. Reaction. Living things can react to other things. A lizard can move into the sun when it gets too cold. Tiny bacteria can swim away from larger bacteria. Even a tree can drop its leaves when it gets too dry.
A ball has no control over what happens to it. It changes place only when something else moves it.
Naming living things. With more than 1.5 million kinds of living things, scientists need some way to give them names that everyone can use. In 1758, Swedish biologist Carolus Linnaeus came up with a naming method that is still used today.
Linnaeus gave each of the living things he studied two names, a species name and a genus, plural genera, name. A species is a group of living things that are very similar in structure. A genus is a group of related species. Linnaeus gave humans the name Homo, genus, sapiens, species, or wise man.
An easy way to remember the order of these groups is the sentence, "Kings play chess on fine-grained sand." The first letter of each word is the same as the first letter of a grouping.
Since Linnaeus's time, scientists have added 5 more levels of classification. The broadest groups are called kingdoms. Within a kingdom, similar living things are grouped into phyla. Phyla are divided into classes, classes into orders, and orders into families. Families are made up of similar genera, and genera are made up of related species. These groupings show which living things are related through evolution as well as through structure.
Kingdoms. Scientists have been grouping and regrouping living things into kingdoms since Aristotle's time. Today, most scientists agree on a 5-kingdom system. Fungi is a kingdom of decomposers. Fungi are not plants or animals. They get food by breaking down dead plants and animals and absorbing their nutrients. The kingdom Planta contains all the plants. Plants are different from animals because they make their own food, using sunlight and gases from the atmosphere.
The kingdom Animalia contains all the animals. Animals cannot make their own food. They must eat plants or each other in order to survive. The kingdom Protista is similar to Monera, but protists are a little more complex. Protists are very small creatures that have only one cell. They move around with fake feet and whip like flagella in order to find Monerans and other protists to eat.
The kingdom Monera contains the first life forms to develop on Earth. Monerans are simple one-celled creatures that can be seen only through a microscope. The 2 main groups of Monerans are bacteria and blue-green algae.
Living thing. Starfish. A starfish is not a fish at all. It is a star-shaped creature that lives on the ocean floor and moves around slowly to find food. Starfish are also called sea stars.
There are nearly 2,000 kinds of starfish. They live in every ocean, but most live in tropical regions.
What do a starfish and a sea urchin have in common? They're relatives. Both belong to a group of animals called echinoderms, a name that means spiny skin. If these animals don't seem very similar to you, imagine a starfish with its arms pulled together so that the tips of its arms meet. Now do you see a resemblance? What do a
Inside a starfish. Most starfish have 5 arms, but some have as many as 40. The arms connect at the center of the starfish's body, which in some starfish looks like a circle. Starfish range from about 3 inches to 3 feet, 8 centimeters to 1 meter across.
At the tip of each of a starfish's arms is an eye spot. Eye spots detect light, but they don't see objects the way your eyes do. Starfish don't have a head or a brain.
The central part of a starfish contains the animal's stomach, with its mouth below and its anus, if it has one, above. Branches of the nerves, digestive tract, and water canals go into each arm.
Starfish have 2 sex organs in each arm. These organs release eggs or sperm into the water.
Starfish have a special way of moving around. On the underside of each arm are thousands of tiny tube-shaped feet. These feet expand and contract by using water that circulates in canals or tubes inside the starfish. The feet, like suction cups, grab a surface and pull the starfish's body along.
Like other echinoderms, starfish have spiny skin and an internal skeleton. Small hard plates lie under the skin. These plates support the starfish, but let it move.
Food. Many starfish feed on clams, oysters, and other animals with shells. For meals like this, a starfish sends out for dinner. That is, it sends just its stomach out for dinner.
Starfish are serious pests in many oyster and mussel beds. To remove the starfish without damaging the shellfish, fishers drag a net over the beds. The net mops up all the starfish. Their feet and spines attach to the net, and they are carried up and away.
A starfish uses its arms to pry apart the 2 halves of a mussel shell. The starfish then turns its stomach inside out onto the mussel. The stomach releases juices that digest the mussel while it's still in its shell.
Becoming a star. Most starfish develop from fertilized eggs that hatch into larvae. The larvae float around at the water's surface until they are ready to metamorphose, or change, into adults. Before they change, the larvae attach themselves to a rock or other solid object.
A female starfish sometimes keeps her eggs with her. The young that hatch from these eggs do not spend time as free-swimming larvae. Instead, they develop directly into adults. Regeneration. You'd think that with so many arms, a starfish could afford to lose a few of them. Starfish do lose arms, but they also grow them back. Like the tails of some lizards, the arms of a starfish can regenerate, or grow back.
As long as the center disc and at least one arm is left, a starfish can regenerate almost its entire body. The process may take months.
Brittle stars. Brittle stars are related to starfish. They have long whip-like arms and a small center disc. Unlike their slow-moving cousins, brittle stars can crawl very quickly by moving their flexible arms.
As their name suggests, brittle stars lose their arms easily. If you try to pick up a brittle star by one of its arms, it will shed the arm in order to escape. You can hardly touch a brittle star without breaking it.
Sea urchins. This is a test. It is not the kind of test you would find in a classroom, however. A test is the shell of a sea urchin. You can sometimes find one like this on the seashore.
The test lies beneath the skin of a living sea urchin and anchors its spines. Starfish and sand dollars are relatives of sea urchins. They all have skeletons made of hard plates, covered by living cells. All of these animals belong to a group called echinoderms, a name that means spiny-skinned. Life of a sea urchin. Adult sea urchins spend their lives on the ocean floor. They are found in every ocean and in many environments, from tide pools and very shallow reefs to deep, dark trenches. Some sea urchins cover themselves with pieces of shell and small stones. This helps hide the sea urchins from predators. When the water is rough and full of waves, sea urchins use their teeth and spines to burrow into rocks. These rock holes protect the urchins from being swept away.
Sea urchins feed by moving around on the ocean floor looking for food. They eat bits of animals and plants that have settled on the ocean bottom. Sea urchins.
Becoming an urchin. Young sea urchins are called larvae. Like many young fish, they spend their time floating around near the water's surface, living with and feeding on plankton. Many other animals feed on plankton too, so living at the water's surface can be dangerous. Luckily, the tiny sea urchin larvae are very hard to see. In fact, you can look right through them. Cells at one end of the larva grow inward, creating a fluid-filled sac at the center of the larva's body. The larva's body parts arrange into their adult shape around the sac, which divides into 3 sections. The larva eventually grows 4 arms. During the last stage of its development, the larva absorbs its arms. At this point, the young sea urchin sinks and takes up adult life on the ocean floor.
A spiny matter. The first thing you notice about a sea urchin is its long, movable spines. A closer look, however, will show you that spines are not all there is to a sea urchin's body. A sea urchin's mouth is on the bottom of its body. The mouth holds 40 bones and 60 muscles, which make up 5 toothed segments. These segments are strong enough to grasp prey and scrape away rock. A sea urchin uses its spines mainly to defend itself, although the spines also help the animal move. Some spines can stab through skin, gloves, and even shoes. Some sea urchin spines contain poison glands. Getting stuck by a poisonous spine is as painful as a jellyfish sting. Sea urchins have tiny pincers in between their spines. These pincers keep small creatures from trying to attach themselves to the sea urchins.
Sea urchins move by using their tube feet. The tube feet pump water in and out to move the urchin. Sea urchins also use their tube feet to sense food. Tiny suction cups on the ends of the tube feet pick up food and move it to the urchin's mouth.
Urchin eaters. The spines on sea urchins protect them from most of the animals that would like to eat them. Some animals, however, manage to get past the spines.
Sea otters have teeth that are flat and rounded like grinding stones. They use these teeth to break off the spines and crack the chests of sea urchins. Sea otters help keep the sea urchin population from getting too large. Triggerfish are very patient. They break off the spines of sea urchins bit by bit. Then the triggerfish can eat their dinner without being stabbed.
Islands.
Living things. Starfish. Sea urchin.
Islands. Weathering and erosion.